Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 680. My opponent started off with e4 and I went for the Alekhine's defense with knight f6. Just immediately counter-attacking the center and provoking the pawn to come forward. By the way, I've seen this knight c3 move quite a bit. Just to put it on the board. There are different ways to play against it. What I've been playing is very simple. I just play e5 and we usually get something like a 4 knights, which is a fine opening for black. You could also play with d5, and I think that keeps it more in unique territory, but that's kind of a funny line. So anyway, that's what I do. I just play e5 there. But let's go back to the game. In the game, he played the normal move e5, just pushing on, kicking the knight around, kicks it again with c4. If he played d4 immediately, this could also transpose, because he plays d4 right here. And we'll see we're in a position, 350 games is a very common position. d6 is the main move. Black has to immediately set about undermining the center if he's going to play the Alekhine's defense. That's a key to it. And white has a choice of going for the 4 pawns attack or just taking. And the 4 pawns attack is interesting, but actually black can equalize with precise play. So this is probably a better move. He takes d6. Just gives white a longer lasting, although smaller edge. And normally take with the e-pawn. I've seen them taking with the c-pawn as well. And we get a few normal moves here. Knight c3, bishop e7 is the main move here. You want to get this bishop, the e-file is open. So you want to get the bishop out of the way so you can castle quickly. And so that's why that's a natural move there. And now bishop d3, h3, knight f3. There's lots of moves that can be played here. White continues developing. I pinned right away. There was no particular hurry to pin. I could have just castled here. Well, I'll look at that castling line later. Similar things happen in the game. Anyway, bishop g4, bishop e2, he unpins. And then knight c6. Once again here I could castle and get back into more mainstream territory. So to look at the main line a little bit, I wanted to look at that here. Just because I want to help, I want to remember this for myself. And also I think it's kind of interesting that the main line includes, well, first you develop with knight c6, and then if white pushes with d5, you take on f3, similar to what happened in the game. If he defends with b3, which is the most common move, then let's see, you can play bishop f6, putting a little more pressure on the center. He defends, and then you can play d5. And this is a mainline position I've seen actually in over-the-board games. I've had white against a player who plays the Alekhine's defense this way. And he pushed on with c5, just like in the main line. And now this, I pushed on, I had white, I pushed on with c5 just like in the main line. And now this knight needs to route around to find a more active square. But black has actually solved a lot of his problems here. This pawn center is now fixed, so there's no tension in the center. After this knight is moved out of the way, b6 can be played to kind of undermine it from this side. And the knight can route around like this and find a home over on the king side. So seems to be an okay position for black, but it also is the main way for white to play as well. So I just thought that's interesting. Let's go back to the game. I played knight c6 here, and we are still in the opening book after d5. I was surprised to find that this is a line, and it's actually the best move here, bishop takes e5, because it's sort of, if he takes my knight, I can take back with the bishop. It just wins a pawn, so pretty much is compelled to take the bishop, and then that gives me this nice e5 square for my knight. So this is a good line for black. I pretty much have equalized here, so I've done okay. Let's see. He could play bishop e2 to preserve the bishop, and we would stay in some kind of known territory. But here we finally leave the opening book with b3. And then, let's see, I go castles. We both castle. And then I go bishop to g5. Yeah, I thought this bishop was kind of hemmed in by my pawn structure here. my position is still a little bit cramped, so exchanges probably help me a little bit. And also, I get rid of the bishop pair advantage if he trades. He could try and preserve the bishop by bishop to b2, but then I've got pretty active posts for my pieces, and I can take off his other bishop, and I would still be okay. So anyway, he went with knight e4. The chess engine recommends actually bishop e2, preserving the light squared bishop as best play, but all this is in the range of about even. Let's see, he went knight e4, I traded, took a knight bd7, getting this knight into the game. One of the downsides of the Alekhine's defense is this knight that gets chased all the way over here to b6. He is out of the action for a while, and you have to find your opportunity and get it back into the game. Let's see, he goes bishop e2. I go knight f6, and I think after he takes the knight, I truly have equalized here. He should probably, keep a little more interest in the position by retreating this knight and playing on. It's not like this knight on f6 here is such a big threat that he needs to trade it. And this knight can still, from c3, find useful things to do, maybe coming out to b5, putting pressure on the queen side, or routing around on the king side in some other way. Anyway, he decided to take the knights off, and I guess, yeah, he wanted to get in this move f4, which is not bad, but it seems like I'm nearly equal here. Once again, the chess engine still seems to give some slight edge to white, I guess because white has a little more space, but it's pretty hard to see white's advantage, really. So he goes queen d2, I go rook f e8, bishop h5, rook e4, I get to activate my rooks. He trades off the bishop for the knight, and then plays rook c to e1. So this is a very drawish kind of play, just trading everything off. There's not enough of an advantage here for white to hope for winning chances. So I don't really approve of this way of playing. Anyway, but for white, I think white should try for more. Anyway, these exchanges don't really help white. They don't hurt me. I managed to keep an active rook by defending in that way. And let's see, he played g3, just shoring up his king side, so he didn't have to be tied down to defending his f4 pawn. And now I play c6. Is a bit of a controversial move because it seems to weaken my pawns. It's going to leave me with this d pawn that might come under fire. But I wanted to try and get something going in the position, and looking at it with the chess engine, it seems like this was okay. It still keeps the game in the range of about even. He takes, I take. Let's see, he brought his king up, king g2, and I went with rook to d4. My idea was to get the rook in front of these pawns and use it to help the pawns come forward. Kind of a funny idea, but it was the quickest way to get the rook over to the d file rather than routing around and getting the rook behind it. That gives white too many chances to organize his pieces. So I think this was a good choice here. He goes queen e2. And then I push on with d5 immediately. But all this, as I said, is still in the range of about even. It's not until this move 28, where there's the first, slight mistake in the game. I mean, there were some maybe controversial decisions, but no actual mistakes, I think. And this is only a small mistake, but it gives me a persistent kind of edge. Chess engine says rook c1, and the position is dead even. I mean, my king is exposed to checks on the back rank. So it's hard for me to organize a way to push this pawn. And also my rook is in front of the pawn at the moment. I have to find a way to get the rook out of the way. Although I guess there's a ready-made escape route for the rook going there and then pushing the pawn. Anyway, this would be even according to the chess engine. But the way he played it with rook to d1 allows one too many trades. After this, my queen penetrates. And then, let's see, instead of king h3, his best defense is actually king to f1. And we'll return to this king f1 idea in a bit, so I won't go into it here. But I just push on with, after he moves his king, I push on with d4, where it's protected by my queen. Now, this is a very dangerous passed pawn, and he has to be very careful. His best move here is to just kind of sit on the position. The engine is playing slow moves like a3, f5, we'll go through this engine line. It's kind of funny. A4, taking 2 moves to get to a square that the pawn could have gone to in 1 move. But I guess the idea is that white really has no good moves, and he's just kind of stalling for time. Let's see, queen c3, the king goes back to g2 now. A5, clamping down on any further moves here. King goes back to f1. That's what I'm saying. The chess engine improves the situation by moving the king back to f1, where it could have been right away on move 30. And then starting to push the d pawn finally. H3, again, kind of waiting. The king can't actually get any closer, but it has to stay nearby to help defend against the pawn. And then I can bring my king forward. And, well, it did not find a win here. It just gives some kind of advantage to white of black rather, a -1 score. So black has an edge here, but there's no clear plan of how you can actually queen this pawn if white keeps his pieces nearby and keeps making small moves and not creating new weaknesses. But well, I can bring my king closer. I can try and push some pawns and create some weaknesses over here, and at the right moment push this pawn forward 1 step at least and open up the queen along the 3rd rank. Maybe get some action that way. So it would be a long, slow game with some kind of edge, and I would be pressing. Anyway, after queen d3, I'm actually just winning, and I play this correctly for a while. So queen to c3, very useful technique when you've got a queen and pawn against a queen. You can almost always just win if there's no king in the neighborhood, because the queen and the pawn by themselves are enough to promote the pawn against a queen. So the queen is pushed out of the way. Then I just push on with d3. He goes f5. It's still all okay. I push on with d2. Goes with the check. Move my king here. And he takes this way. I was really expecting him just to take the pawn, which is, all this is still winning for me. He takes, I take. And he played queen to d8 here, setting up these checks. So we can bounce back and forth with a discovered check. And the move I played did not prevent that. So queen c2 was the big blunder on my part. And that just allows the draw. It's not so easy to win, but I have to place my queen over here, queen to e3, so that if he checks, I can block with the queen, still defending the pawn. That's a key idea here. Let's see, and this is a line. How do you make progress from here is a good question. So this is a line by the chess engine. Queen to e6 check, king back to g2, queen to e2 check, finally getting to where you can use the queen to support the pawn, king back to h3, queen to f1 check, driving the king to h4. The king doesn't want to go to this square because then you can queen with check, and he loses all hope of those discovered checks. But you can queen anyway because the king, having been chased to the h4 square, now blocks this queen from coming here and delivering the perpetual check. So I get the second queen on, and I win. And then there's one other interesting idea here. So after queen e3, b4, he pushes his pawn forward, queen e6 check. If instead of moving the king, he blocks with the g-pawn, then he can come in here with check, and the king runs here. If the king goes back to e2, we get a similar line with queen. The king goes to g2, you check on e2 and get a similar line. So king goes here. And now this is the funny idea. You can queen anyway, because if he takes that pawn, there's a mate here. g5 check, king here, and g6 mate. So anyway, some pretty cute lines there, but you have to find that key move, queen e3 first, to prevent the perpetual. And I didn't make that move. I played queen c2, and the game ended in a draw. So too bad. But, well, he played well early, and the game was basically even until he went for one exchange too many. That rook to d1 really let me into the game and gave me winning chances, and queen d3 I was definitely winning from there, but then I gave it back to him. Anyway, that's how it goes sometimes. I hope you guys like this. Leave me any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon.